Chapter 19 Continuation. This fact was of course hushed up after the war. The family lived in constant fear that this information would spread. There was a merciless hatred of Germans and Nazis after the war, understandably. They had gotten off relatively lightly, except that Freimann's father had taken his share of it on various occasions. Harassment, insults, and physical violence, although nothing so serious that he hadn't grown stronger from it. The conversation gradually shifted in a more general direction, about power and the abuse of power. History has clearly shown that power is a phenomenon found in families, local communities, or larger groups, crowds of people, all the way up to organized systems with an ideology as their guiding star. Nazism is a good example of how badly things can go wrong, terribly wrong. But wait a moment. Ideologies. What is an ideology? First comes an idea, a thought, a sudden impulse, then it is spun further, and simsalabim, we have an ideology. It quickly becomes directive. Often thanks to a person with a naturally authoritative appearance, disciples form, and eventually the ideology spreads, and thousands follow, just as a flock of sheep follows the shepherd. Bettina chimed in, "I will never become such a stupid sheep and just trot along." She looked determined and tried to hide a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "No, neither will I," Freeman replied. But he was honest enough to admit that it might happen to him if he were first manipulated, seduced, and ignorant to begin with. The next day they went for a long walk into the hills in the gently rolling and inviting landscape. A cup of coffee and a piece of chocolate were the highlight at the top of Tinderbietskålen, 523 meters above sea level. A brilliant day, beautiful view, few mosquitoes and wasps, only the bumblebees buzzing in all the clover everywhere. They set course back towards the cabin but thought they'd take another route just for the sake of variety. Freeman was the pathfinder, although in reality he had no clue. The map and compass were forgotten back in the city. But we'll follow the sun and a tentative sense of direction, he smiled a bit sheepishly. It didn't take long before they had wandered into a thicket where every way out looked the same. The path had disappeared, and nettles, thorn bushes, and impenetrable undergrowth made the moment's experience of nature a bit strained. They stopped for a rest. Then Bettina suddenly burst out. "I was a member of the Mormon sect for several years." Yes, this was the moment for such revelations. They had already talked about what ideologies could lead to. They had sworn they would never let themselves be lured into such things. Freeman had no words. "Let's keep going," he muttered. They crawled on through the thicket and eventually saw an opening. Thorny branches clung to the colorful, fashionable hiking clothes they had dressed themselves in. How you look on a hike is often the most important thing. They finally came out of the thicket and looked out over a lovely stretch of farmland and saw the Freeman farm on the other side, his grandfather's childhood home. They stood there enjoying the freedom from all the brush, enjoying the view, enjoying the sense of liberation. It was like escaping from a claustrophobic ideology.